This video was requested by The Catalyst, which I initially said no to since someone else already did it, but I've since changed my mind and decided to give it a shot. Happy Hunger Games!
Reading.
So, if reading is a sin, then the subtitles on these videos shouldn't be there. Just saying, that sounds pretty hypocritical.
Anyone with facial hair like this definitely has herpes.
I don't think that's what herpes means.
This electric fence hole is even more convenient than the one in Jurassic Park 3.
It looks to me like the entire fence has an opening for her to get through. And it's supposed to be on anyway, but due to frequent power outages, it's not on right now. But it was mostly made to keep animals out.
How many times did your name in today?
42.
If you read the book, you know what this means. I'm guessing.
Yeah, we know what this means. But it's not like it's a super important detail, so I'm fine with the movie not explaining it. Though, if you're curious, some of the times they put their names in helps get them more food.
Katniss knows exactly where to turn her head to see Gale.
You know this isn't their first time here, right? She's 16 years old, so this will be her 5th time being here at the Reaping. So yeah, she'd know exactly where to look.
The movie makes Elizabeth Banks ugly.
What?
I volunteer as tribute. I believe we have a volunteer.
Well, that was easy.
Sinning this scene.
Futuristic flip-offs require 3 fingers. Or is this British too?
I know you're trying to make a joke here, but this isn't just a flip-off. It's mostly meant to be a sign of admiration and respect for Katniss after they just saw her take her sister's place as tribute.
Woody Harrelson should never be anyone's mentor.
Yeah, but at least he actually helps instead of just drinking all the time.
Haymitch's alcoholism is introduced and then immediately solved.
That is not true. Haymitch is just drinking in this scene because he doesn't need to do any work right now. Once Katniss and Peeta get to the capital and they start training, then he can start taking this more seriously.
The movie came out in 2012, but the fire effects were completed in 1995.
I mean, this fire isn't even real in universe, so...
How did this girl get up here?
That's kind of the idea. The fact that Rue found a way to climb and outsmart everyone else is part of what Katniss admires about her, especially since she's only 12 years old.
I used to decorate the cakes down at the bakery.
Right, because Coal Mining District 12, where they eat squirrels, has a bakery with a f***ing cake decorator.
I'm pretty sure most of those cakes go to the capital.
I think you have a shadow.
That's a pretty racist thing to say.
Wait, because she's black? The fact that you thought this makes it sound more like you're being racist.
I'm not allowed to bet.
And yet, strangely, you are allowed to act.
Act like he's betting? Why wouldn't that be allowed? Especially since no one is here to witness this.
How do holograms make these guys' jobs any easier?
This movie is set in the future, dude. Literally every single futuristic movie has holograms. This is a staple of the genre at this point.
45. 44.
Do you really need to vocally count down from 50?
You're forgetting the games part of this movie's title. The Capitol wants the entirety of Pan Am to watch this, so they need to give them a chance to sit down with their TVs on.
If you wanted to see the actual Hunger Games themselves, you'll need to slog through an hour and 8 minutes of the film first.
The entire first hour has been building up to this, and there's a lot of lore, backstory, and character development we need to know before this. I think the movie has the right to take its time.
Builds awesome traps she never uses.
Never uses, huh? I'm pretty sure you cut out this scene that shows her using it.
This death montage illustrates how unimportant these characters are.
Or add stakes to the games. The fact that half the tributes are already dead should make Katniss more afraid that she might go out soon. And come on, they all arrived in the exact same place. It would make less sense if a huge chunk of them would get far at all.
She is almost at the edge.
Let's turn her around.
We interrupt this episode of The Hunger Games to bring you The Truman Show.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Also, if it's real, forest fire won't put itself out.
This is the same machine that can spawn creatures out of thin air. I think they can put out fires just fine.
She's almost there.
This lady's job description is to describe things on screen that are plainly seen and then
Get a cannon ready.
I'm just curious why you're singling out this lady in particular. You earlier showed a guy explaining that Katniss was getting too close to the edge, so shouldn't the same logic apply to him? It doesn't have anything to do with her race or sexuality, does it?
If Haymitch can be her sponsor and send her gifts, then why the f did he waste all that time telling her to do the things that get her sponsors and gifts?
Haymitch isn't her sponsor. He had to go to the sponsors and ask them to send the gifts. The movie literally shows us that debate, so this is dishonesty since you didn't show that scene.
How did Will Smith's daughter get up in the tree undetected?
That's racist.
Of course there's a wasp's nest right above the bad guys.
These aren't wasps, they're tracker jackers.
Is she hallucinating history?
Yeah, why not? I think it makes sense that hallucinations would include one's memory.
Mockingjays respond to any old noise you happen to make.
Yeah, mockingjays listen to anything and repeat it. What's the sin? You just described what happened in the movie.
This girl conveniently shows Katniss exactly where the landmines are.
So?
And this guy goes chasing after a noise he maybe heard.
You know he's meant to guard all this food and supplies, right? So following a noise that could be someone trying to steal it would be kind of his job.
You know, this might be a good time to use that healing cream.
That cream was specifically made for her burns. Rue was stabbed, so how would that even heal her insides?
Obligatory closing of the Deadeye.
Sinning Rue's death.
No cannons for these characters. That lady back at the home base must not have done her job.
You have a point with the kid that killed Rue, but with Rue herself, it took a bit of time for her to die, and there's even a point when the movie cuts out the audio, so the cannon most likely fired during that.
Yeah, this isn't a waste of time or anything. You do know you could die at any minute, right?
This is meant to be an FU to the Capitol by letting them know that they don't own them. Normally they just leave kids' bodies to be picked up, but since Katniss grew attached to her, and she's mad at the Capitol for putting them in this position in the first place, I think she feels justified to do this.
Shouldn't District 11 be used to their tributes dying? Is a riot really necessary?
Sure, but they've never seen someone clearly show pity and sorrow over their own dying. And again, Katniss basically just threw a middle finger at the Capitol, so this inspires District 11 to do the same. This sets up Katniss as the symbol that leads the revolution in the sequels.
Isn't she just sitting out in the open in plain view?
Yeah, but she just lost someone who she saw as a stand-in for her sister, Prim. She's not thinking clearly.
So Katniss is sitting here crying in the woods, and then we cut to Haymitch trying to persuade the Devilbeard, and then we cut to the Devilbeard trying to persuade his grandpa, and then we cut back to Katniss still crying.
Jeremy doesn't understand scenes happening at the same time cliche.
Age differences at this point in child development matter. Katniss should easily dominate this other girl.
Katniss is 16 while Clove is 15. That's already not a good sign for this sin. But also, Clove is a career tribute, meaning she trained her entire life before she entered the games, and we have no evidence that Katniss has ever had to wrestle anyone before. So, no, the outcome of this scene is realistic.
Katniss is surprised the cream worked, even though she used it earlier.
That's not the same cream that she used to heal her burns.
If he really is dead, probably not wise to shout his name at this point.
You really expect her to be thinking clearly when she thinks her boyfriend might be dead?
Why, yes, that is a dog. The finale is a dog. Correction, the finale is several dogs. Awesome.
Double dipping.
Bad guy appears out of nowhere.
There are a bunch of these dogs, like you said. It makes sense for Cato to be up here.
Katniss uses the arrow as a distraction instead of a deadly weapon.
Isn't the arrow a deadly weapon? And what do you mean by distraction? You're literally showing her shoot Cato's hand, which causes him to let go of Peeta and gives Peeta the chance to push him off the cornucopia.
They were okay with dogs possibly killing everyone, but the berries, no way.
The creatures were meant to speed up to the ending, and they don't like them eating the berries because Katniss and Peeta show that they were both going to eat them, which is a problem for the Capitol since they need at least one champion.
So what happens when we get back?
I guess we try to forget.
Yeah, me too.
Yelling at the screen.
Ah, here we go again.
Reading, but also reaping.
Oh crud, we're already starting with the repeat from the original video. But also, you're doing this movie again 10 years later, and you still don't realize how hypocritical this is?
Also, people actually signed this shitty excuse for a treaty, meaning the alternative must have been much worse. And the movie doesn't even have the courtesy to enlighten us about the horrifying alternative that was avoided by this horrifying agreement.
The alternative was literally killing them all. And remember, you're doing this recent after all 4 movies have come out, so you know that the Capitol destroyed District 13 and are using that to scare the 12 other districts. If they don't comply, they'll commit genocide.
It's your first year, Prim. Your name's only been in there once. They're not gonna pick you.
Premature false hopelation.
But Katniss has a point here. She made sure to only have Prim's in there one time, while her own name is in there a lot more. The odds that Prim would get picked is insanely low, which makes it even more surprising when her name is pulled out.
I'll still cook you.
Preparing a meal without considering that DJ Khaled wouldn't eat it.
But doesn't she never prepare that meal? You're basing this joke off of a threat.
It was the first deer I've seen in a year. Now I have nothing.
Katniss losing this game seems devastating, but Gale solves the problem by throwing a rock to scare some birds, a tactic that you'd think Katniss could have come up with on her own. I mean, she did the leaf wind thing to track that deer earlier, and that seemed to take a hell of a lot more skill.
What's your point? The fact that Katniss could have come up with that idea? I'm sure she could, but why does that mean Gale couldn't? He's also a hunter, and he was just trying to make her feel better after scaring the deer.
Because killing is fun.
They're hunters who have been killing animals for years. Clearly, they've become desensitized to it. Katniss even thinks there's a difference between killing animals and humans.
DC isn't ruining one of its most important franchise characters in this scene.
Arbitrary movie reference.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
I'm honestly surprised there isn't some Hunger Games fandom movement to have all the odd-numbered days in May as some sort of bullshit Hunger Games holidays. I already can't get through May the 4th without Star Wars fans invading the cultural consciousness. Might as well destroy the rest of the month as well.
If this actually did start a May the 4th situation, I'd at least somewhat understanding sinning the movie, but it didn't. So why are you adding a sin for something that didn't happen? How does that make sense to you? What if I send this video because you got better even though you didn't?
That's a mockingjay.
From this point forward, everyone will treat this pin as if it is special, but nobody will explain why.
See? Right here, you're showing knowledge gained from seeing the sequels. So why did you earlier forget about District 13?
You better tuck in that tail, little duck.
Ducks do not tuck in their tails, so you and your pet names for your sister can just tuck off.
And you wonder why I don't like CinemaSins.
It's a mockingjay pin. To protect you.
And also to use as a metaphorical through line for the story, just in case we're actually in a movie and need some powerful moments later.
Double dipping.
War. Terrible war.
Gale would be excellent at silent propaganda sins.
It's almost like the Capitol are the bad guys or something.
Also, propaganda's position is barely a stone's throw away from news position, and I'm sending it as such.
Oh good, another exposition sin. I already mentioned this the first time, but this movie needs to explain a lot of lore and backstory before we can get to the titular Hunger Games. If we're going to have a movie where kids kill each other for entertainment, we better have a reason for why it's a thing in this world. Otherwise, audiences would ask questions. In fact, you would if this exposition wasn't here.
The lone victor, bathed in riches, would serve as a reminder of our generosity and our forgiveness.
I don't know, maybe this all complies with the logic that's been set up in the story, but it doesn't absolve the writers for thinking that this is what kids think that adults think. I think.
It's called manipulation.
I volunteer as tribute.
How the CinemaSins writers' assignments are handed out for the Fast and Furious movies somehow makes it into the script.
Sinning this scene again? This is one of the most heart-wrenching scenes in the whole series.
And now, for the boys.
Let's hear it for the boy.
Jeremy sings in a video.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes? You either go with 1 minute or a solid 5. This really is a dystopian future.
A lame nothing sin to pad out this 20-minute video.
To protect you.
Regifting a gift back to the person who gifted it to you.
This pin did save Prim's life since she didn't end up going to the games, so it only makes sense to give it to Katniss, hoping she will survive.
Sorry, miss. I was instructed to allow your friend in for exactly 20 seconds just to remind the audience that they're supposed to be thinking about you two as a potential couple, because how else are they supposed to be invested? But he really has to go now.
And there's also Gale being an experienced hunter like her, so it'd be nice to get some advice from him. These two are friends. Why wouldn't he be here?
Hey, Mitch.
Her name is Katniss, and hey yourself, pretty boy.
Yelling at the screen.
You know, Katniss, he is our mentor. He did win this thing once.
Katniss was literally sitting there silent before this statement, so I don't see why PETA is acting like she just said Haymitch can go f*** himself.
Yeah, she's been silent, but PETA is trying to remind her why they have to pay attention to Haymitch's advice, since it doesn't seem like she's listening.
I just don't think there's anything wrong with getting a little bit of help.
That line felt slightly less forced than the insertion of this flashback, so they must have some sort of shared memory, I guess?
Of course Katniss would remember PETA helping her after he said this. Maybe that was his intention.
Heart and mentor has a drinking problem, but through coaching a young protege, they find something worth living for, cliche.
How did you find another way to misunderstand Haymitch's drinking problem? Again, he doesn't feel like he has anything to say now, and he won't truly help them until they start training.
Putting your nasty barefoot within 6 inches of someone's food intake port.
You know he's drinking right now? I'm pretty sure drunk people don't think clearly.
Oh my god, can we just get to Hogwarts already?
Arbitrary movie reference.
Oh, Joy, why don't you join us?
Her name is Katniss, and she'll join when she is good and ready, asshole.
Yelling at the screen again.
Can you pass the marmalade?
So we know thanks to both Prim and Gale that Katniss can hunt, but nothing about that information justifies her being capable of this table stabbing between the fingers trick. And if she's this much of a weapons expert, then she's a dick for not volunteering sooner.
Wouldn't it make a lot of sense for knives to be a huge part of hunting? Because I feel like it does, since she could use them to kill animals at a close range, and unlike with Prim, the 4 previous times haven't had anyone she loves get chosen at the reaping.
And to get sponsors, you have to make people like you.
Influencer culture.
Haymitch just described CinemaSins, and they somehow missed it.
Also, a movie will now use this Haymitch is irritable but actually wise moment to spoon-feed us some more exposition about a convoluted sponsorship program that allows rich people to send you soup.
Pretty funny that you're using the term spoon-feed, which I feel like that's exactly what you want, since you ask for exposition on things constantly.
The idea that society would not progress past leg-waxing both conceptually and technologically.
It's also a society that still has killing act as entertainment.
The importance of this moment cannot be overstated.
But as with everything in this movie, we will give it our best shot at overstating it anyway.
That's literally his job.
And don't you love how the stylists, they so clearly are able to reflect the character of each district?
Seems more like they've chosen to reflect the character of Cirque du Soleil, but if you say so.
Arbitrary studio reference.
What is that? Background.
This part of the movie will now pretend that no one has seen fire before. This place is about to lose its mind because of a few flames.
Yeah, because the fire is literally burning on 2 kids? I'm just saying, I'd lose my mind too.
Now see that? I love that. 2 young people holding their hands up, saying, I'm proud I come from District 12. We will not be overlooked. I love that.
Thank God Stanley Tucci is here to explain this, because I had no idea why anyone would care about this.
Did I say that's literally his job yet?
Before you survive the Hunger Games, your shins must survive this bed frame.
So, regular beds then?
In 2 weeks, 23 of you will be dead. 1 of you will be alive.
Thanks for clarifying. I was worried that one person was going to occupy a quantum superposition.
I'm pretty sure this clarification was for you specifically.
Most of you will die from natural causes. 10% from infection, 20% from dehydration.
The trainer gives us only enough statistics to account for 30%, so maybe this percentage is exclusive instead of inclusive. Either way, it's confusing.
Exposure can kill as easily as a knife.
Bringing a knife to an exposure fight.
But if you learn to get water and survive for as long as possible, that knife is kind of needed to kill that tribute.
Chase, where's my knife? Huh? You didn't touch anything.
These two get into a fight over a missing knife, so we can all chuckle when we find out Rue stole it, not because this place only has 1 knife.
These are teenagers. I'm pretty sure they'll fight over just about anything.
According to Katniss, Peeta can throw a 100-pound sack of flour over his head, but this flashback shows him unable to throw this bread far enough that maybe Katniss could catch it, so I'm calling bullshit on the whole flour thing.
I'm pretty sure Peeta was trying his best to not get caught here.
3 bullseyes in a row? This training montage has real Rocky IV, we've created the ultimate weapon, I will break you vibes, which is fine when you're a cheesy 80s movie, but a bit over the top 30 years later.
Arbitrary.
Throw that metal thing over there.
What?
I know, right? Be more specific, Katniss. There are several metal things all over this place. You barely nodded a general direction with your head and also gave no indication of where to throw whatever metal thing you all of a sudden think you should throw. This is pointless and non-specific advice, and as such, Katniss is a terrible human being.
Which is why he looked to his left to see if she was talking about that metal thing that he most likely noticed beforehand.
Geez, what is District 3 doing wrong? The 4'8", 65-pound 12-year-old from District 4 has better odds than both of their tributes? Get on the ball, 3. Also, a moment ago, Rue's odds were 60-1, and now they're 7-1. I'm not saying this is impossible, but that would also have to mean something interesting happened off screen, and one would think that a movie exceeding 2 hours could have found a little time to include this.
And you are literally asking for exposition, even though you just complained that the movie did that.
Most people think you can tell an expert by their precision and accuracy, but in movies, you can always tell the expert because they miss first to provide some false tension, skill-doubting bullshit that they can then overcome.
Katniss is still a human being, though, and she's a little nervous shooting in front of all these sponsors. Why do you expect her to hit her target every time?
Hey, who ordered this pig? Who ordered this pig?
Arbitrary reference from whatever this clip is from.
I'm not sure which is more unbelievable. The angle on this shot from below, pinning the apple to the wall directly across from the pig's mouth, or that these high-powered men wouldn't have a single bit of security or protection from a rogue contestant who wanted to take them out.
While I can't say anything about the first part, this has literally never happened before, and you can tell because in Catching Fire, there's a force field blocking them, clearly showing that they learned from this. You even sinned that movie 8 years before this re-sin, so you definitely know this already.
From District 1, Marvel, the score of 9.
I'm not sure that score should be valid. I've heard this one may have access to some Compound V.
Cool, an MCU joke. I think they're doing alright though, since Deadpool and Wolverine has a bunch of hype around it and will surely make a buttload of money. I'm writing this before having seen it, but I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
Katniss Everdeen with a score of 11.
This one goes to 11 cliched.
What kind of cliche is that? What other movie has done this?
She shot an arrow at your head.
Well, at an apple.
I mean, there are asshole connotations in both cases, so semantics.
But no one ate the apple, so this running gag doesn't work.
This kind of thing does happen at this point. There's only one winner, right?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Haymitch is foreshadowing so hard here, you can see the future knowledge sauce dripping off his chin.
Because foreshadowing is a sin, I guess. Even though I'm pretty sure that's a really good writing tool that makes some of the best stories good. I mean, it's one of the reasons Back to the Future is as good as it is.
For a society that uses forced child murder as entertainment, they sure are entertained by the simplest things, huh? Katniss spins around a few times with some fire effects, and the crowd acts like M just dropped new finishing bars on Papa Doc.
Her dress does look like it's literally on fire, and the audience doesn't know how it happened, so yeah, I'd say they should be impressed.
He made you look desirable, which in your case can't hurt, sweetheart.
Wait, what? She got a pre-score of 11 out of 12. The evaluators loved her, and the audience was eating up everything she put in front of them with a flaming spoon. Why is he acting like she's in trouble with the sponsors?
That is not what Haymitch is saying at all. PETA has just confessed his love for Katniss in front of the entirety of Pan Am. Katniss herself got mad about this, even saying this makes her look weak, and Haymitch is pointing out that the idea of them being in love would give the sponsors motivation to send them gifts which could save their life. That's one of the major plot points in this movie and sets up their real romance for the entire series. How did you misunderstand this so badly?
Also, Haymitch has now called Katniss sweetheart at least 5 times.
Sweetheart, 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 sweetheart.
Is it that he's sexist? Or is it that he's an asshole? Both? Well, I don't know. So here's 5 cents for repetition.
Says the guy who opens every video by criticizing studio logos.
I'm sorry I went after you.
That's funny because I'm not at all sorry that I'm about to skip.
You know, I'm starting to wonder what the point of the skip sin is. Some of the times I've sinned it, it tends to be during a scene where characters are bonding, and this is an example of that. But why? Aren't scenes like this necessary so audiences can care about the characters?
Katniss, you can do this.
Movie never really addresses the fact that Haymitch had to be encouraging to both Katniss and PETA, and in doing so was encouraging both of them to kill each other. And an examination of what that does to a person would have been more interesting than pretty much everything else we've seen so far.
Sure, but there's also a high chance that someone else will kill one of them, so I doubt Katniss and PETA have to worry that much.
I'm just glad no one checks the clothing for any contraband in this overproduced, down-to-the-last detail reality show. I mean, it's kind of strange, but it sure comes in handy for situations like this.
Cinna has been working here for a presumably long time. I think he'd know how to do something like this without the Capitol knowing.
The movie takes 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 18 seconds to officially Hunger Game. But at least the sequels will focus more on the Hunger Gaming, right? Right?
Yeah, same sin as in the original video, but also, you are literally demonstrating here that you have knowledge of the 3 sequels again. So why did you leave in that earlier sin about Katniss shooting at the sponsors?
42, 41, 40.
They're using voice augmentation. Because he's a child.
I don't send the laughs as often as the Birdman, but this one sounded especially fake, so I gotta add 10 cents here.
Oh hey, it's that Gale asshole, remember him?
The movie also cut to Prim and her mom watching the games, so why are you just pointing out Gale here? Like, if you're gonna point things out on the screen anyway, you could at least be consistent about it.
Trying to figure out anything that is going on in this melee through this quick cut shaky cam bullshit. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are dying and such, and that a lot of people are wearing black. That's about as far as I've gotten so far.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I hate shaky cam as much as the next guy, and there are times in this movie where I feel like it isn't warranted. but I think it actually fits this scene. We're basically being shown Katniss's perspective. She wouldn't be paying much attention to all the kids dying because she's too focused on grabbing supplies to survive, so she would get only brief glimpses of the corpses. This is meant to put us in her headspace, basically.
Katniss creates a trap and has a squirrel roasting on a fire within the first few hours of being in the wilderness. And that's just some insane survivaling speed. I've seen Naked and Afraid. I know what butts look like. I mean, I know how long that stuff can take.
Well, I'm glad you corrected yourself when you said this trap wasn't ever used the first time you seen this movie. But also, she's a hunter. Why wouldn't she know how to do this?
Also, taking the time to cook a meal on your first night in the wild when the sounds, smells, and sights could lead to your murder.
Which is why Katniss immediately puts out the fire when the animal is done cooking.
This person will now use a pen to project a symbol onto a holographic map that will apparently start the montage of the fallen, as opposed to, pressing a button.
She's clearly placing it at a specific part of the dome so all the tributes can see it. There probably isn't a button for this.
We don't feel bad for any of these kids because the movie gave them no dialogue and little, if any, screen time.
Are we supposed to care about them? These games have 24 tributes. That would be way too many characters to get to know and then feel sad that they died. Besides, Katniss is the protagonist. I mean, the books are told almost exclusively from her perspective, so Katniss didn't get to know any of them either. So we, the audience, are in her shoes right now.
I get using the fire to force the tributes together so they have to fight each other. However, killing your star player with a fireball to the face seems like it might negatively affect your ratings.
Says that this fireball is killing her while showing her dodging it. And I'm pretty sure the game makers knew she'd notice it.
She's heading towards the left flank.
Okay. Can you give me a tree right there?
Fancy Beard said, "Can you give me a tree?" Can you give me a tree?
Yes, this laugh was really bad too.
Also, would this amount of interference and control be fair to the betting markets? Would you bet on a basketball game if the producers were like, okay, the Warriors are winning by too much, let's give Boston a 9-foot hoop and go?
You just said why the game makers are doing this. It's to bring the tributes closer together so they can kill each other.
This idiot tries to climb a tree with a sword in hand, and upon failing one time, doesn't think to put the sword in a sword pocket and maybe try again.
Sword pocket? And you say this as if that was the problem, when in reality, he grabbed the branch that fell off, causing him to fall down as well.
These trained assassins stand directly beneath a giant target and shoot arrows straight up into the air instead of backing up 50 yards and having a clean shot.
But they're not as trained with a bow as Katniss is.
Convenient tracker-jacker nest is convenient. Oh, and convenient Whoo in a neighboring tree to point it out is also convenient.
And?
For those of you who don't know,
this movie has a built-in exposition factory, and it's honestly really not fair to the other movies who have to earn it.
Since the movie can't give us Katniss's inner monologue like the books do, having Caesar Flickerman telling us this is a really smart idea. Honestly, I would have removed the sin because having him explain to the audience in Pan Am who probably don't know is really clever. Also, what do you mean by earn it? What does that mean, and how does this not qualify? You always send exposition no matter what, so what are you talking about here?
The venom of a tracker-jacker's sting
can produce powerful hallucination.
Why would Katniss be hallucinating exposition from Caesar Flickerman?
Why wouldn't she?
How long was I asleep?
A couple of days. I changed your leaves twice.
And her clothes too, right? From the urination and such that would happen if you were truly out that long.
That's creepy.
Also, how did they stay out of harm's way that long? If they went full force fire Hadouken on her ass for trying to hang out on the outskirts, why would they just let these two chill for 2 days with no consequences? That's terrible television.
Wouldn't it make a lot of sense to let Whoo heal Katniss so she can then get back in the games?
Putting bombs all around and judging by the explosion also inside your stuff. Then being upset when those very bombs blow your stuff up.
If they can't have it, no one else can.
No, not Whoo. I was fine with all the other bodies, but killing Whoo was unacceptable. Am I sinning the movie for making me feel the exact things it wants me to? Yes. Yes, I am. Because it's fucking Whoo, damn it.
Well, Whoo's death is mostly sad for Katniss, since Katniss saw her as a stand-in for her sister Prim. The fact that she's 12 years old, young, full of life, it's like she saw her sister die. And before you guys tell me that's only really explained in the book, The movie tells us this same info by having Katniss sing the same song that she sang for Prim in the beginning, so this gives the audience a chance to connect the dots and realize what this means for her.
Super nice of the remaining tributes to give Katniss the time to honor Rue with this decorative memorial space. What a kind and understanding bunch of psychopaths they are.
It's almost like they just aren't around this area.
1 full minute of disorienting rebellion porn.
Pointing things out on the screen.
The regulations requiring a single victor have been suspended. From now on, 2 victors may be crowned if both originate from the same district.
And a hearty fuck you to all the districts who have already lost one of their tributes, and also to those at home who have bet on today's festivities.
Yeah, this is the capital we're talking about. And he's not saying the games now require 2 victors. Cato, for example, would have still won, even though the girl from his district is dead.
Movie cannot convince me that this is proper first aid. Hell, I wouldn't believe wringing out this rag into a wound is right, even if a doctor told me to do it.
Darn it, Jim, she's a hunter, not a doctor.
I think about that all the time. How I tossed you that bread.
Peter.
I should have gone to you.
In case you think this negates my previous sin about the bread tossing, I would like to clarify that the issue was not the act of tossing, but his weak-ass throw.
Who thought that this would have debunked that sin? How would it have? Did you seriously think your audience would misunderstand you?
No, there's no way I'm letting you go.
The power of boners convinces Peter that he wants to die of an infection.
Jeremy says boner.
Instead of grabbing everyone's gift, D5 girl only grabs her own like she isn't even trying to win this thing.
It's almost like she's in a hurry and needs to get out of there before another tribute hits her.
Katniss misses 2 point-blank arrow shots because she sucks at archery, but only when the plot requires it.
You're seriously sinning a character for making mistakes? This is why Katniss is a much better female protagonist than Rey, because she's not perfect at her abilities.
Sensually caressing someone's open wounds. Who directed this, Cronenberg?
Pretty sure Peeta has that healing cream on his thumb.
That's Nightlock, Peter! You'll be dead in a minute!
Remind me again why I want Katniss to end up with either one of these doofuses.
What's the problem? The fact that she's upset? Yeah, she thought he might be dead, and she saw him hold poisonous berries in his hands. Of course she'd be upset.
What are you doing?
Maybe Cato likes berries too.
Sure, but he's probably not going to accept these as a gift, and nobody wants berries that look this stepped on.
Did you seriously think that Katniss would walk up to Cato and offer him berries instead of just putting them near him and tricking him into eating them?
Did you hear that?
Any suspense that could be had from not knowing what's out there was immediately killed by our hologram reveal of the random beast now stalking them. So instead of being worried, the audience is now just waiting for the thing to attack them.
But isn't there still tension in waiting for a creature to attack them and being curious to see how they escape? You just said there isn't tension in this scene, but then explain why there's tension in the scene.
Having Thresh be eaten off screen because he cared about Rue and saved Katniss that one time. 2 things that must mean he's a good guy, and so our good guys couldn't possibly kill another good guy. That would create nuanced feelings.
And also letting her go instead of killing her when he had the chance. That sounds like 3 things to me.
She just creates these demon dogs out of thin air, and you can claim advanced technology all you want, but I'm still going to counter by claiming the law of conservation of matter.
This is the same world that captures kids and forces them to kill each other. Suspend your disbelief, dude.
Also, Peeta is then able to outrun a genetically modified super beast while running on an injured leg. Even after using the super healing lip balm, he should not be faster than Thresh would have been with 2 good legs.
How are you making this point, even though you know the healing cream worked like magic to turn his leg back to normal? This isn't like the book where his leg was infected so badly that he had to get a synthetic one afterwards.
Stop! Stop!
Look, we've seen them create fires and dogs and change rules however they see fit. And you're telling me they can't just rustle up some other contrivance to make sure these 2 can't pull a Romeo and Juliet? For that matter, isn't that a better ending to the show? People would talk about that shit forever. My point is, we're supposed to believe that Katniss and Peeta just outwitted the game, but I think the game just gave up because the movie needed to end.
Again, the games need a victor. President Snow even explained earlier that it is necessary to create hope in Panem, but not too much hope to start a revolution. Not only that, but the idea that Katniss and Peeta die by outsmarting the games would no doubt start an uprising, making everyone realize that they can rise up against the Capitol. The only defense they'd have is that they were so madly in love with each other that they couldn't stand the thought of the other dying, and if they were dead, they wouldn't be able to explain that.
You saved my life.
We saved each other.
Ladies and gentlemen, the star-crossed lovers from District 12.
This celebrity couple's name is Penis.
And Jeremy says boner.